The Manhattan skyline sparkled in the distance, its neon lights shimmering across the still surface of the Hudson River. The city was alive, but Bella Hadid found herself in an unusual quiet, standing alone on a riverside promenade. She wasn't supposed to be here. Her schedule was always packed with photo shoots, events, and meetings, but tonight something felt different. The hum of the city's energy seemed to draw her in, calling her away from the spotlight and into the night solitude. She wrapped her leather jacket tightly around herself, the cool breeze mixing with the warmth of her thoughts. Just as she let out a breath, a figure stepped out of the shadows. A man, probably in his late 30s, dressed in a dark trench coat, strolled toward her, holding a worn notebook in one hand. His eyes locked onto hers for a brief moment. "You look like you're searching for something," he said, his voice calm but with an edge of something deeper. There was something intriguing about him, something she couldn't quite place. Bella hesitated. She wasn't used to strangers talking to her like this, not without the usual layers of politeness. "Maybe I am," she said with a small shrug. Her curiosity piqued. "And what about you? Late night journaling?" He smiled, his eyes softening, and held up the notebook. "Something like that. Sometimes the city writes its stories if you're open to hearing them." And just like that, the conversation began. Bella found herself easing into it, revealing more about herself than she intended. She spoke about the loneliness of fame, how the public's perception often made her feel like a character in someone else's story. Julian, he said his name was a writer. He found inspiration in the overlooked corners of the city, stories hidden in plain sight. As they talked, Bella felt a shift, as if she were no longer just a famous figure, but a person sharing a moment with someone who truly listened. As the conversation flowed, Julian's eyes twinkled with an unspoken invitation. "I'm heading to a place where stories breathe on their own. You should join me." Bella wasn't sure why, but she felt an odd pull to his words, an urge to see where this night could lead. "Sure, why not?" she replied, her voice light, though her heart was racing with anticipation. They walked side by side, the city streets glowing with the soft light of street lamps. The hustle and bustle of Manhattan seemed a world away as they made their way through narrow alleys and quiet blocks. Eventually, they arrived at a small jazz bar, tucked between towering buildings. The neon sign of the Blue Note flickered gently, casting an inviting glow on the pavement. Bella felt the weight of the city lift off her shoulders as they entered. Inside, the atmosphere hit her immediately. The rich scent of aged whiskey, the faint sound of a jazz trio playing in the corner, and the soft hum of conversation blending into the music. It felt like stepping into a forgotten world, a place where time slowed down. The walls were covered in black and white photos of jazz legends, each one immortalized in a moment of history. Julian led Bella to a quiet booth at the back. "This place," he said, his voice almost reverent, "it's where I find the clearest thoughts. The stories here, they practically write themselves." As the night went on, Bella found herself opening up in ways she hadn't in a long time. The smooth rhythm of the music seemed to encourage her to share more, and she spoke of the pressures of fame, the loneliness that came with being constantly in the public eye. Julian listened intently, offering small words of encouragement, his presence almost magnetic. At some point during the night, Julian slid his notebook across the table. "Read this," he said softly, his eyes never leaving hers. Bella hesitated for a moment before opening the pages. The notebook was filled with fragments of thoughts, scattered ideas, and raw observations. Some of it felt unfinished, as if the words were still searching for meaning. One entry in particular caught her eye. "They say the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. What happens when the shadow is all you see?" She looked up, meeting Julian's gaze. "Is this about you?" she asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and concern. He nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "Partly, but it's also about people like you, people who live in the spotlight, who carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. It's easy to lose sight of yourself when everyone else is watching." Bella sat back, the weight of his words settling on her. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen, not as Bella Hadid, the model, but as just Bella, a woman with her own doubts and dreams. The moment felt fragile, yet powerful. As the night wore on, Bella and Julian left the bar and wandered through the quiet streets. The city, usually buzzing with energy, felt like a completely different place in the early hours of the morning. Julian led Bella to a spot overlooking the Hudson River. The water shimmered under the light of the waning moon, and for a brief moment, the world seemed still, peaceful. "This is my favorite place," Julian said, leaning against the railing. "When everything feels too loud, I come here to remind myself that there's more to life than deadlines and expectations." Bella stood beside him, her arms resting on the cool metal. "It's beautiful," she whispered, taking in the view. They didn't speak much after that, just letting the quiet of the moment wash over them. But when Bella finally spoke again, it was like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "I never get to be just me. Everyone always wants something from me." Julian turned to her, his gaze steady. "I think tonight you've been just you, and that's enough." For the first time in ages, Bella felt a sense of relief, as if she had finally found a space where she could just exist without the pressure of expectations. She smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. The city, the night, Julian. Everything felt different. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. A week later, Bella received an unexpected text from Julian. "I need your help." She found him at a coffee shop, his eyes red from lack of sleep, his notebook spread open in front of him. He looked lost, a man struggling with the weight of a big decision. "I've been offered a publishing deal," Julian said, his voice shaky. "But they want a finished manuscript, something polished, and I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if it's ready." Bella sat down next to him, her presence calm but firm. "You can do it, Julian. You're closer than you think. I'm here to help you. Let's get this done together." For the next few days, they worked tirelessly, bouncing ideas back and forth, refining Julian's manuscript. Bella's insights helped him see his work in a new light, and his passion reignited something inside her. They were in it together, and the connection between them deepened, both creatively and emotionally. Just when it seemed like things were finally coming together, Julian received an email that knocked the wind out of him. The publisher had pulled out, citing changing market trends. The dream, it seemed, had slipped away. "I knew it was too good to be true," Julian muttered, slamming his notebook shut in frustration. Bella reached across the table, her voice steady and unwavering. "You don't need them. You've got something special. Your work is incredible, and someone else will see that. This is just a bump in the road, not the end." Her belief in him was unshakable, even when he couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Bella was determined to help him find it, no matter how long it took. With Bella's encouragement, Julian submitted his manuscript to a smaller, independent publisher. This time, the response was everything they had hoped for. The editor loved the book, seeing its potential to connect with a wide audience. Julian couldn't believe it. This was the break he'd been waiting for. When he told Bella the news, she pulled him into a tight hug. "I knew you had it in you," she said, her voice full of pride. "I just needed you to see it too." The release of Julian's book was held at the Blue Note, a place now special to both of them. Friends, family, and even strangers gathered to celebrate his achievement. Julian stood at the front, reading an excerpt from his novel, his voice full of emotion and strength. As the crowd erupted into applause, Julian turned to Bella, gratitude in his eyes. "This wouldn't have happened without you." She shook her head, smiling warmly. "No, Julian, you had it in you all along. I just helped you see it." In the weeks that followed, Julian's book began to gain traction. It was praised by critics and loved by readers. Bella watched from the sidelines, her heart swelling with pride as her friend's dream took flight. She realized that in helping him, she had also found something in herself, something she'd lost along the way. One evening, as they sat by the river again, Julian turned to her with a smile. "You know, this story isn't just mine anymore. It's ours." Bella smiled back, feeling the weight of his words. "And it's just the beginning." Bella returned to her world of photo shoots and red carpets, but something had shifted inside her. She carried Julian's notebook with her, its pages filled with reminders of a night that had changed everything. As the camera panned out, Bella stood on a balcony overlooking the city. In her hand was a pen poised above a blank page. "Every story begins somewhere," she whispered, a small smile on her lips, "but the best ones are the ones we write together." Thank you for watching. Every journey begins with a single step, and today we've taken one together. As we close this chapter, remember that new beginnings are always just around the corner. Keep embracing change, follow your dreams, and never forget that the best is yet to come. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Until next time, stay strong and keep moving forward.